Over 2,800 people have made it into the Two Comma Club by making at least $1 million in their business. And you get the opportunity to understand exactly how it is that they have done it on an individual by individual basis through this podcast. If you're interested in learning more about the tidbits and advice that they have, then you should consider subscribing to the Two Comma Club newsletter, where you'll get daily updates and advice on the podcast and the things that we are learning from the individuals who have made at least $1 million. Just go to 2ccnewsletter.com or click the link in the description down below and subscribe.
You know what? My whole life, I've let money dictate my feelings. When it's not there, I feel weak. I feel unsafe. I feel like I'm not a good provider. I feel incapable. And when I have money, all of a sudden, I'm happy. I have everything. I'm rich. And so I was like, how does one get into that state where you can feel rich and abundant when your reality is not that? This is what I learned out of all of the stuff that I went through, and this is what I teach, that the only reason someone actually is struggling with anything, financially, health, wealth, relationships, doesn't matter, is actually because of addictions and allergies.
Welcome back to the Two Comma Club podcast. Today we are here with Tyler Watson. We've met Tyler in Bart Miller's accountability group. Tyler, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience here and let them know kind of what you're up to.
Yeah, so I'm Tyler Watson, and if you're watching the video, I look like I'm in my 20s, but I'm actually turned 35 this week, which is awesome. Got 4 kiddos, and I've got an 8-year-old, turning 9, 6, 3, and a 7-month-old boy. So super exciting life. We've got all sorts of crazy stuff. My main thing, I'm an elite performance coach, and we help entrepreneurs and influencers be able to make changes and nail their goals in days instead of taking years going in circles. So sounds too good to be true. And yet someone once said that I'm a mix between Tony Robbins and Houdini. So it's kind of like what I do has this like, what is this? Can this really be true? Like, can I make these changes this fast? Can I hit 6 figures in a weekend or do $1 million in a month or actually have it all without losing it all? So yeah, we're about making the incredible become normal. So
I love that. I do. First off, I love your energy. I love what you do. And I'm really excited to learn more about what you do, but I will let our audience know. But like, I guess I want to back up a little bit. I'm all about story and backstory is what I'm trying to be. Like, how'd you get started, Tyler? I think you got a lot of energy. You're doing great things, but obviously you just didn't wake up one day and, hey, I'm doing elite coaching. I'm transforming lives in hours, not weeks or years.
No,
So
I
how'd
mean,
you
I
go?
was born this way, dude. I was just like super successful from the get-go.
I appreciate you're lying, and we try to avoid that. So maybe this isn't the right podcast for you.
No, man.
So tell us about
Holy
your backstory,
crap.
like kind of like what happened, your
Yeah.
journey, kind of like what you went through to
Yeah.
kind of get where you're at. I know you got an awesome story, and I've heard little bits of it, but I haven't heard the whole
Yeah.
story yet.
Yeah. No, well, it really, so looking back, I think my whole journey started around when I was about 12 years old. And I remember I was sitting around on a couch with and my dad walks in the room and he's like, "Hey, Tyler, I need to talk to you." And first off, anytime that was said meant I'm in trouble or something's bad. So I was like, oh crap, here it comes. So I already got prepped for like war. I was like, okay, what's he gonna say? And he sits down and he looks at me and he's like, "Hey, your mom and I are getting a divorce." And this was completely out of the blue. I had no idea anything was wrong. And like I was taught that families are together forever, like focus on family first, everything's all about family. So my whole reality was based in family, unity, love, and then within a minute, everything flopped for me. And I watched my mom go through 5 more divorces, my dad through another 2, and I had this innate fear, terror, that I was never going to have a great relationship and that I was going to screw it up. And I also took on this belief that it was my fault that my parents separated. And so back when I was 12, I had no concept of anything that I'm telling you right now. And so from about 12 years old to about 18, I suffered with hidden depression. So I never told anybody. But from 12 to 18, there would be times where I'd sit on the edge of my bed and think about multiple ways that I could kill myself and think that, hey, maybe somebody will even care, if I'm gone. So I went through this depression, and during the day, I would smile, straight A's, perfect kid, like doing everything to the T like how I should, because I didn't feel good enough. I felt like it was all my fault, and this heaviness was always on me. And I remember the first time that I turned to pornography, and that was like actually a huge relief for me because I had felt guilty for so long and I didn't know why, but it was because I felt like it was my fault that my parents went through a divorce. And the first time that I did porn, I remember this sensation of like, oh, it was like validating because for the first time I felt like I had a reason to feel guilty. And so I became super addicted to porn, never told anybody, struggled for a long time with porn addictions, video game addictions, depression, suicidal tendencies, all the way to about 18 years old. And I watched a lot of chaos happen, struggles financially. Like we always had enough, but it was always just enough. And my mom, I got all my clothes from thrift store, which was great, but it was that kind of mentality. We'd go and we'd get food stamps, and that's how we lived. And my dad, spender, and he was an entrepreneur. He's a clinical kinesiologist, so he helped a lot of people in the healing arts. And it was this dynamic of like, can I be free with abundance? And then do I have to save every penny? And it was always this conflict over and over and over. So I ended up getting cleaned up a little bit, figured out some things just on my mentality wise, served a mission for 2 years for my church in Mexico, and came back, fell into the same patterns. So back into porn, back into like, I had felt like I could make these changes, being in a super strict, like, here's the rules. And I was like, sweet, I just follow the rules. Everything's gonna be great. And it was the hardest 2 years of my life, but it was insane and crazy. But I didn't struggle with any of those things. It was crazy because I just felt like I was immersed in a purpose and I didn't have to think about any other things. As soon as I got home, within about 3-4 months, though, right back into the old patterns. And this thought was like, can I really change? Am I just stuck this way? Or is there something that I can actually do to get out of these addictive cycles and into creating abundance, having a good family? And I literally felt like I couldn't, but I knew that it was possible. Like something inside of me knew that there was a way. I just didn't know how. So I became really obsessed with the human body and psychology and like, how do you get change to last? What's the difference? And so I started to study. I didn't have any money. So I was a massage therapist and I was in college and I started to like, here's how my entrepreneur mind worked. I was like, man, if I could, I'm working at a burger shop and I'm making like $7.50 an hour. So if I get my massage therapy license, which I was already natural, my dad taught me all this stuff about healing art. So I was already really good at it, but I never charged any money for it. And so I was already helping a ton of people, but for free. And so I was like, well, what if I charged like $15, which is like twice an hour that I'm making? And I was like, whoa. So if I did like a 30-minute to an hour long session, I charge $15 and $30. Now this is genius kicking in. Now I'm making money. So I would literally charge 15 to $30. And then I got up to like 45, but then I'd spend like 2 hours with them sometimes. And so I justified because I didn't feel good enough. I didn't feel like it was enough. And I always had to feel like I kept doing more and more and more. So ended up staying super dirt broke, but now I only worked a couple hours a week. And that was all the clientele I had. So I went through this like massage therapy deal, in debt now and barely making any money. And, living like a college student does on top ramen and carrot sticks. So that was kind of like the beginnings. And yet I still struggled with all these things. And so I started reading books. I started listening to different, Jim Rohn and all these different people who got into like network marketing stuff. And I started to think a little differently. I was like, well, what if I could make like a 6-figure income? What if I could do something more? What if I could have a great relationship? What if I could have it all theoretically, you know? And then still, I was like terrified to interact with my family because I watched my mom continue to go through divorces and struggles. And I was like, okay, I have to take care of this guy. Like, I've got to figure out how do I shift and change me without feeling like I have to save all my family. And it was a battle, man. Lots of depression through college, still that feeling of like not good enough. Porn addiction still riddled me. Times at night where I just break into sweats, feeling not good enough, like feeling like demons and like I had no life and no purpose and like I just want to end it all. So I went through versions of hell, which I think we've all experienced at different times. And it was a very emotional and mental battle. And so as I went through this, I started to understand a little bit more that maybe there's more to this game. Maybe it's more than just this, you know, I'm in sin and spiritual sin, or I'm into, I just suck at selling or whatever. I was like, there's got to be something to how do you get the human body to change to where it doesn't have to be this freaking battle 24/7. And I wanted to know. Like I had this burning desire. I don't know if you ever had this feeling of just like, I don't care how long this freaking takes me, but I am going to figure this thing out and I'm gonna do it. Like, even if I have to die and come back from the dead or something, like I am gonna figure this freaking thing out. Like that's the kind of feeling inside that I had. I was like, man, I am at the bottom of the bottom. I suck, and there's no further place for me to go down. So I've only got up. Like there's only upwards to go. So, dude, yeah, I just like became obsessed with personal development. Long story short, met my wife. She was a coach for like youth. So she was a self-made coach back 10 years ago before coaching was a deal. And I was like, wait, this is legal? Like you get paid to just like help people without physically doing something for them? And she's like, traveling all over, doing these things. I was like, holy crap, how is she making all this money? So we met, and I asked her this question. I didn't tell her it was me, but I was like, how do you feel rich with 49 cents in your bank account? And I was like, just asking for a friend. And she, we were kind of seeing each other, but not quite dating. And I was the massage therapist, and so I was like asking this question, and she looked at me and she's like, well, the test is, can someone feel rich with 49 cents in their bank account? And I was like, no. What the like stupid answer? Like you have to have money to feel rich. And so that it kind of ate at me. And I was like, you know what? My whole life, I've let money dictate my feelings. When it's not there, I feel weak. I feel unsafe. I feel like I'm not a good provider. I feel incapable. And when I have money, all of a sudden, I'm happy. I have everything. I'm rich. And so I was like, how does one get into that state where you can feel rich and abundant when your reality is not that? But I also didn't want to go into that crazy people who are like, I'm wealthy and abundant and they're dirt broke. Like I wanted to actually have money and feel it. So it ate at me for like weeks. And I was like, how can you feel rich with 49 cents in my bank account? Because that's how much I had. I was like, this sucks. And as I started to focus on this, there was like this little click that was basically me feeling like a victim my whole life. That I had let outer situations and circumstances, whether it be my parents, whether it be my bank account, dictate my emotional state and how happy I am. And I thought, how crazy. Like I am living in a victim state. I thought I was positive and happy, but I was not. I was just ignorantly living day to day in a victim state. So I started to go through some really intense different techniques and things to work on my mind and patterns. So I went through over now, that was about 10 years ago. Since then, I've been through almost 630 or 50 different processes to work on myself. almost we're at $1 million in investing in ourselves and personal development and transformation. And I think back of like what did it? And I went from a place of struggling, making less than $13,500 a year after I got married. That was combined income, to being able the next year to do over 135 grand, to then the next year more than doubling that, and then creating a 6 and then 7-figure business within 3.5 years. So I looked at that and I was like, well, what was it? Like, what did that for me? It wasn't because I was born that way, because I had this internal passion and fire. No, I was from freaking like Green Forest, Arkansas, where everybody works at Tyson's plant. And like, I didn't have anything really going for me. So it came down to this thing. This is what I learned out of all of the stuff that I went through. And this is what I teach, that the only reason someone actually is struggling with anything, financially, health, wealth, relationships, doesn't matter, is actually because of addictions and allergies. That's it. That's all it is. Now, somebody might be like, well, what does that mean? Are you talking about drug addictions and allergies to food? Like, no. The same type of addiction that someone has to a drug, you can be addicted to states of being. So I was addicted to depressive states. I was addicted to lack. I was addicted to making $1,000 a month and what that caused inside of me. I was addicted to certain quantities of money, certain abilities to feel loved, certain abilities to give. And my body was so used to it that anytime I got outside of that, it would freak out and go right back to that addiction. That's an addictive state. Now, to every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So to every addiction, there is actually an allergy. So to every pull, there's a push. So an allergy is something that you're pushing away, which is your ideal states of being and how much money you want to make and all the goals. So before I got my first 2cc award, I had theoretically hit it, but I was actually allergic to the idea of getting it. And I didn't feel good enough, and I didn't feel capable, and I didn't even think I hit it yet. And so it came back to when I was in school and I'd worked so super hard and I had all these issues of learning, and everybody gets these awards, right? And I felt like growing up that all these awards were just invalidating all the hard work that I did. It's like, great, here's your award for all the crap you've went through and no one knows. And so I was like, I don't want that freaking award. Like, I don't want any award. So I never even attended any of my graduations or anything. I was just like, screw that crap. So I literally was allergic to this idea of getting awards. And as soon as I did what's called aligning, which is what I teach, which is getting out of the fight flight, getting into a place of power and choice, we got the award within like a month and a half. And I was like, what the heck? Like, this is insane. So literally everything comes down to fight flights. And I've got a whole story behind that we can go into of like how that developed. But that's kind of my journey. And since then, I've been super passionate about helping entrepreneurs and influencers get results in minutes or hours instead of taking years going in circles, pretending that things have to be a certain way or putting on the face that everything's okay, when internally they're like melting down. They're like, yeah, I'm making millions and spending millions and I'm broke and I'm struggling and I hate my life and I can't even enjoy it. To actually getting into a place where, hey, you can enjoy having a great family. You can enjoy making great money and keeping great money. You can have fun with your body and your health, and you don't have to sacrifice one thing for the other. So anyway, that's a little bit about my story.
Wow, that's amazing. There's a lot to unpack there. That is fantastic. It sounds like you've been to the depths of what a lot of us would consider our own version of personal hell, and you've pulled yourself out of it. And that is phenomenal. Like, a lot of people, they get stuck there and they struggle with it. And you were able to, through your own journey of development and not accepting no for an answer, you made that happen. And that's stellar. We can attest a lot of your success today to that, I'm sure. So I'd love to hear more about specifically like the product it is that you offer and how it is that you go about actually getting those results for people, if you wouldn't mind elaborating.
Yeah. So this whole thing like evolved because I actually started back, 10 years ago doing all this stuff. And I really sucked at selling. I was so bad that literally as a therapist, I would, the moment that that was really refined in my brain, because I needed to make money to pay for food for my wife who was sick, pregnant, and couldn't do any of her work anymore. So I was like, okay, I got to step up my game. And I remember learning a little bit about some sales, listening to like some trainings from Jim Rohn and all these different people with success resources. And I was like, okay, I got this. Like, I just got to sell. And I had just learned how to package my massage into like a 10 like 8 services or something for like $800 for like this whole thing. So it ended up being like $80 a pop, which still isn't a whole lot. And but it was like a bulk number, and I was like, holy cow, this is like crazy. And I remember this lady comes in and I work on her. I was like I did Thai therapy and did a ton of like trauma response releases and some really cool epic stuff physiologically. And I helped her shift, and she was like, wow, like that was amazing. And I knew the thing I was supposed to say, like, hey, I've got this program and it's this, and we had a good shift. And would you like to continue? Would you like me to explore, dive into a combo? But instead, I literally just started to shake. Like, this is how bad and messed up I was. Like, the thought of money, I was so terrified, and I literally just sat there shaking. And I was like, okay, see you later. And she walked off. And then I just felt like this complete loser. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't even ask someone for money. Like, what the heck is wrong with me? So from that, I was like, okay, this guy's got to change. Like, I've got to work on something. I know something's messed up inside of me. I know it's not them. I know for things to change, I got to change. So I started to work on a lot of like value myself and how to articulate things. And it started with this concept that everything I did, actually, this portrays it. I call it the unstoppable equation. And what it is that most things that I learned were at the top of this equation. So it's like, hey, the speed at which you attain your goal is represented by this U. And if you have two people and they have the same goal, one might attain it within days, one might never attain it. So, like, what's the difference? Well, what most gurus taught me was, hey, your skills are critical. Like Jim Rohn, hey, you talk to 10, you get 0. You talk to 10, you get 1. You talk to 10, eventually you get better. You talk to 10, you get 2, right? And so I was like, oh, so it's just, I got to talk to more people. I just got to, put in the numbers and get more skills. So I did that because I was desperate, and I literally walked and knocked doors. This was how never to grow a business, by the way. And I'd knock all of the doors. I was in Branson, Missouri, and I went around knocking doors to all the businesses that were like tourist traps. And I was like, hey, I was in Freedom Catalyst. I'm a Freedom Catalyst coach, and I help your business get to the next level. I looked like I was 12. I had like this plaid shirt on. And I remember people just looking at me and literally not saying anything and just turning away. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this rejection, feeling crappy. I was like, God abandoned me. Like, what am I doing? Like, this is the worst decision I've ever done to be a coach. And so I worked on my skills, and I put in a lot of work, which is the next thing. So skills amplify your work and your focus. So if you're super focused and you put in a lot of hard work and you get more skills, your skills amplify your work and your focus. So that was it. That was the thing. And this is called the long way. This is how you do it. That's how they teach it. Put in repetition. Just keep doing it. Don't ever give up. And I was like, all right. And I was drinking the Kool-Aid, and then I was like getting so mad after doing this. I was like, this theory sucks. Like, I suck at this. So I'd put in 100 amount of energy and get like 0 out, but some people put in 100 and they get like 10. Like, man, I should be so much further ahead. Why am I not further ahead? Why is Bill or George, who's way worse at the skills, they're further ahead than me? Like, what is going on? So I found that underneath this equation is robbed by what are called allergies and addictions. Pushes and pulls in the body, fight, flight responses, which are actually stored in cellular memory. And if you have just 10 of these suckers, which most of us have hundreds and hundreds, And you're putting in all this energy and effort, whether it's in health, wealth, or relationships. If ever you feel like you should be further ahead, it's because of this principle. It's because you've actually got things going on inside that are robbing your external efforts. So fast forward, I learned a lot of this stuff, did a lot of these processes, worked on the core problems, issues, root causes, all that thing. But that was still slow. Like getting the root cause, like I had spent so much time chasing traumas and pains and doing all this stuff. And it still felt like I was just putting in work and focus and skills. But now more centered on some emotional issues, which got me to where I was. But I was like, there has got to be a faster way. Like, we're pretty intelligent human beings. Look at AI today. You could literally like create a business in 5 minutes. You could like go make millions in 5 minutes. So it's like, if that's possible, what's possible with the human body? Like, can't we reprogram it and change it within minutes instead of taking years? So about 5 years ago, this was when all of the things really shifted for me. Because 10 years ago, I was working on myself and I started to teach like sales because I got better at it, worked through it. And I started to teach for Les Brown and Ted McGrath and went all over the country, wrote my first book, did all these cool things. But something still felt like, there's got to be a faster and more effective way. So 5 years ago, it actually all started with a gluten allergy with my wife. And we were in this place where I just don't like when things don't change. Like I like to see results. And she had been struggling with this gluten allergy, and I had known some techniques that help people get into balance. But every time I did it on her, it would fall out of place within like a day or two. So I became obsessed with this thought of like, why is it that some people get the lasting results and others don't? What is that key difference? And this was where one of those spiritual things happened to me, and it doesn't happen very often, but in the middle of the night, I think God just talks to me when I'm not listening sometimes after years of, being stubborn. And I had this like vivid idea and dream that I was like pulled 10 different modalities and showed me the missing link. And I was like, holy crap. Like, it's not about getting to root causes. It's not about the traumas. It's not about like repetition. It's not about any of that stuff that I had been taught. And that's what I was doing. And it was getting results, but it was slow as molasses. And I was like, huh. And that's when the thought hit that the only reason she would ever be having a reaction towards gluten is if one of her cells, like in her body, actually had an addiction to the symptom that gluten was causing. Literally something in her cells. Like if every single cell in her body didn't have any of that addictive behavior, then the symptom would go away. And I was like, interesting. I guess if your whole body is made up of cells, and if your cells store memory, kind of like your body, your brain, then if all of your cells had changed, then you would change and there wouldn't be any reverting back. It's like, okay, now how do you do that? Like, well, that's interesting. So it said the only reason somebody ever struggles is because of an addiction and an allergy. That's it. If you can change that, they will change. It's like, oh. So I compiled these things, did the technique on her. Back then it took like an hour and a half or 2 hours. And the first thing she said was, I want some toast. And I was like, huh. And it's fully conscious. It's not like a hypnosis thing because that has its downfalls too. And this is like retraining every single cell in your body so that there's literally nothing else that's going to contribute to that symptom or idea. I was like, this is like a full body reprogram. Like, this is insane. This isn't just a mind reprogram, but it's a full body, which is a key difference here. So a lot of people work on the mindset, but they forget the body set. And growing up as a massage therapist, I learned that you can have tons of crazy crap stored in your tissues, in your muscles, not just in your brain. It's unconscious. So working through that gave me this idea that, oh, what if you could program every cell of your body? That would be freaking awesome. So we did. And she still eats gluten today. Zero, like for 8 years, it had been symptoms of bloating and terrible stuff. So then we started doing it on food allergies. We did it on like glutens and people who are celiac, like crazy, crazy extremes. And I was like, dude, this is crazy. Like I had a celiac lady who couldn't even like put bread off of a pan because she would like explode into all these reactions. By the time we were done, she was like eating bread, like straight up. She was like, huh, interesting. So I was like, well, cool. If it works with food, what about with money? Because everything's energy. And I was like, it's just a vibrational pattern. Well, what about money? So as an entrepreneur, I thought, okay, this is going to be super cool. So I love to test stuff. So I'm like, okay, let's test this on myself. So I did it, and it's all word-based because every word has a vibrational state based on your past perception. So I was like, okay, why is it that some people get clients that come to them without promoting? I know that some people have that happen all the time. And for me, I was like, I feel like I have to work hard to get my clients. So I was like, well, the only reason that is because of an allergy or an addiction. So I was like, okay, cool. Let's test this theory. So I was like, sweet. Must be I'm addicted to it has to be hard and I've got to market, and allergic to this idea that people could just flow to me and I could convert them. So I did the alignment specifically, and it's very specific, word specific, on I have clients that come to me and pay in full without me marketing to them. Like literally a phrase. Worked through all the resistance, did the full process, like reprogrammed my entire body towards it. Within 24 hours, I had 4 people reach out that turned into 8K in sales on like random platforms. And I was like, dude, if this is placebo, keep it coming. Like this is freaking crazy. Talk about like law of attraction on steroids. So I was like, this is epic. So then I was like, well, let's test it on other people. So I took a coach, and he was used to getting like 10, he'd get about 10 people every 3 months. So it was like slow. And I was like, well, what if you get 10 people in a week? The only reason you're not doing that is theoretically because some part of you is allergic to that idea and addicted to it has to take you a long time to get 10 clients. So we did it. And within that week, he got like 8 to 10 new clients. And he was like, what the crap? Like, this is crazy. So I thought, well, what about like other things? So then I took a chiropractor from 30K to 60K. He'd been working on it for 2 years, stuck at that level. And I was like, huh, he didn't change any external stuff. So the crazy thing is, and some people are like, well, why don't you just align to making billions of dollars, right? Well, this still applies, the equation. You still need skills. You still need the work and the focus. So if you take someone dirt broke and align them to something like phenomenal, they'll get to find the skills to get there, and they won't resist those skills. Versus if you have somebody who already has the top of this equation, that's why I work with entrepreneurs, people who are already influencers, because they already got the skills. There's just something keeping them from nailing it and having it all work. So that's why like one tweak changes the game. So we did it on a lot of other people. We had somebody like make their first 6 figures in a weekend. Doug Boughton and he was like, dude, I want to like, he's in the inner circle as well. And he was like crushing it out, but he kept hitting these 6-figure months like right under. And so I was like, well, the only reason you're doing that is because dun, da, da, allergies and addictions. Let's align you. And yeah, within his first session that weekend, he ended up making like a 50K deal and all this stuff. And he was like, holy crap, like this is just one alignment. Like, what is this going to be like as you continue? So then after doing it on money, I was like, well, what about relationships? Right. And I was like, well, let's test that. So I had this woman who, for years, she's one of those moms who just gives and gives and gives and gives and gives and feels super unappreciated. And she had a daughter. She was like 41 years old and never felt grateful. She was like super needy. And she was telling me, she's like, I want a better relationship with my daughter because I feel like she just doesn't appreciate me. I feel like I do everything for her. So I was like, well, the only reason you feel that way is because some part of you is addicted to that response and allergic to actually what you want. So we aligned her. Within like 2 days, she gets this letter, the first time ever, from this daughter. And it's just like a 2-page letter of gratitude. And I was like, holy crap. And she's like crying. She's like, this is the best thing that I've ever had. And I was like, this is so super awesome, man. So then We tried it on relationships and marriages and all sorts of crazy things and interactions with kids and everything. Like every single situation that's not ideal is simply an addiction. Every single situation that is ideal that's not happening is simply an allergy. And you can reprogram your body, put in the skills and effort, and now it works as fast as possible. So the final piece was this. And I was like, okay, well, what about these health challenges that people have that are like incurable, right? They're like, I've tried everything, Tyler, and nothing works. And I was like, well, the only reason they'd say that is if some part of them is addicted to that and allergic to actually working. So like, let's try it. So I had this guy, his name was Craig, and he had had a cardiac arrest. And for 5 years, so he was super burnout. He had a multi six-figure business running the company, but he had a cardiac arrest. Stress, boom, hit him. And I was like, interesting. Okay. His wife was like this master energy healer practitioner, like 20 years. And she's like, we've tried everything. I'm certified in this, and the list went on. I was like, okay, that's nice to know. But the only reason that he would have these symptoms, which if he walked and looked left or right, he'd fall over. If he, so his whole equilibrium was screwed up. He'd seen that like neurosurgeons and all sorts, and they're like, we can't, there's nothing we can do. And so I was like, well, this will be a cool test. Let's see. This will put it to the test. And I was like, oh, I hope it works. Like, I was like, my philosophy is, it's just a philosophy. It's hard to prove this stuff. So I was like, okay. Oh, also he had to wear sunglasses and earplugs, like everywhere he went. And then he could only function about 4 hours a day. So I was like, well, sweet. Those are the symptoms that you're addicted to, and you're allergic to what you want. So let's align it. So we did the process, went through the whole thing, took like an hour, hour and a half. And then I was like, well, let me know how it goes. And it's so subtle when someone gets it because they're fully conscious that they're like, it almost feels as if their past never really was. And it's like, why would I exist in that state when I'm now this person? You ever had that where you kind of like let go of something and you're like, yeah, I don't know why I did that. Like that's an interesting thing. So it's kind of that phenomena that happens. It's like, that's like a whole separate version of me now. It's like not me anymore. So he did this and he calls me back a week later and literally he's like, Tyler, and he just starts sobbing. He's like, I am functioning over 8 hours a day. I don't have my earplugs or sunglasses anymore. I can go on walks now with my wife. I can look left and right and I'm not falling over. And like, that's when I got this deep spiritual impression. Tyler, you need to change everything you're doing and just teach this. So since then, it's been about 5, almost 6 years now. I developed what's called the back then it was like called complete alignment technique. Now it's called cellular alignment technique. And it's all about changing and making permanent changes at a cellular level. So instead of taking something and spinning it out for 4 years, 10 years, 40 years, what if you could make changes in minutes and hours and get in that state where it's actually real and get tangible results from it? So yeah, man, we teach it. We certify people in it. I've got programs, books on it. We're writing our 3rd book now. Our 2nd book talks a little bit about this. It's called The Alignment Effect. And now we're writing our 3rd book, which is called Addicted to the Struggle, Allergic to Success. And it's going to be freaking awesome. So anyway, that's kind of the journey. I know it's a little longer, but it's important to get all that history.
I love that. And I really guess I got a background in counseling, Christian counseling. I got a degree. I didn't know why. I was doing jail ministry, just trying to help guys get off the street, doing construction, rehabbing houses, real estate's my background. But I agree, like we're addicted to so many things and we have so many fears. And then you see people when they get out of that, different ways, obviously not kind of like your way, but once they get out of that addictive state, they like, well, I don't even remember that person. I'm not even that person. Like I myself, like I had some similar things you were talking about. And like, I realized all these things where I was judgmental. I wasn't kind, I didn't love others. I was just go, go, go. And now it's like, I'm not even that person. Like, I can't remember last time I judged somebody. Like, I just see everybody who's broken and needs help, kind of like you.
Yeah.
Somebody's not aligned or not doing well. If you can see them in that state, then you can help them versus seeing them as somebody you don't like or you're judging them. You can't really help them. You're repulsing them, not attracting them. And I mean, you got a lot of things going on. I love it.
Yeah.
You got obviously some
But
books.
that's an awesome piece because so many of us, I struggle a lot with judgment. Now, anytime I see somebody, I just say, oh, that's a pattern or a vibrational frequency. That's all it is. And so if somebody's like really mean or really triggery or whatever, I just see them as like, oh, that's a summation of some sort of pattern that they're addicted to. That's it. And they could change that in minutes. And it gets rid of all judgment, all like, I teach people that the trigger is the transformation. Like anytime you get triggered, that is the next step. If you confront that and align it, it'll actually get you closer to your goal. And oh, there's so many things I could teach about that. But anyway, yeah, I love that.
I love that. I love your energy. I love what you're doing. And I mean, I caught bits and pieces of your story and how you're doing things, obviously through following you. But just talk about so obviously that is the, whether it's psychology, whether it's a self-help industry. I mean, that's what they're saying is, hey, you got these things. It's going to take years of therapy. It's going to take all these things. I know for me, some of these things has happened, like you said, at a cellular or subconscious level, and you're conscious, but these things happen because you're attracted, you know what I mean, to what you're looking for, or what you
Yeah.
want to change. And obviously, my journey hasn't been your journey, but a lot of things have changed in my life in the last year, phenomenally changed, but probably through the same kind of methods of things you're doing is learning. And I think it really is exposed. And I think part of it I caught in your story, which you talk a lot about in AA and different things, is you hit bottom. And I think you got
Yeah.
to hit bottom. You got to hit somewhere where you're just sick and tired of being sick and tired and you want something different. That's one of the things I always ask people in business, relationships, if they're getting off addiction. Do you want something different? Because that resistance, like you said, if they do, then they're open to it. So for you, like, what's kind of the goals? I mean, you're going to be growing, you're doing a lot of different things. What's some of the goals that you're trying to work on in your business to help people who want something different? Like, how are you identifying what's kind of like the catalyst for them? You're seeing kind of the litmus test you have for people that you can help or they want to move to the next level. Like, how, like, what qualifies somebody to work with you versus somebody who's not going to work with you and succeed?
Yeah. So it sounds like there's a couple things there. So one of the questions is what qualifies somebody to work with me versus not. So we have different levels. One of my missions is that every single person on the planet is eventually going to be aware of how fast they can change. Just like using ChatGPT, it's just going to be the most intelligent thing that you can do. So when you find something that works, at first there's a lot of resistance to it. Same with like AI stuff. First, there's like all those people who are like, man, that's Satan, that's spawn of Satan. It's gonna take over the world, and then it's gonna be like iRobot, and then we're gonna die, right? So of course, there's all those like extremists, and that's okay. But there's also like so much good that can be used of things, and a tool is a tool. So the people who use the tools, that's what really makes the difference. And when I'm certifying people, I'm like, hey, getting people into this state and helping them reprogram their mind and body. Like if your intention is to help, then it's going to be phenomenal. Like you can help people get out of struggle, get out of pain, get out of chaos, create wealth, create like lasting results. And for me, that gives me a lot of joy. Like I will never stop doing what I'm doing because it's my calling. This is my duty, my like gift that I'm just put on the planet to do. And what makes somebody want to do this or not is number one, they have to be willing and wanting something different. Like if they want to change, then it's a great method and modality. So they have to want that. Number two, it is actually very difficult because you have to confront your allergies and addictions, which feels like death. So it's not one of these like techniques that's like, ah, hairy fairy, like super awesome. No, people hate me when I do it because they're like, I'm literally like confronting it. And C.S. Lewis, there's a really cool example of this in The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, his book that he wrote, The Chronicles of Narnia and all that. So in The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, it's fascinating because there's this kid named Eustace who is a super annoying cousin, and he is like spoiled to the core, right? So he goes through this experience though where he finds like this bracelet or this treasure and he touches it and puts it on, and then he becomes this dragon. And he like turns into this dragon and he's stuck in this form. And there's a lot of symbolism in this, but he's stuck in this dragon form until he has this change of heart. And he changes, instead of viewing everybody as like him being entitled, he hit his rock bottom. Leslie Householder, she's a great coach. She talks about raising your rock bottom. literally we can all choose our rock bottoms. Some of us, our rock bottom is 17 divorces down the road and 3 bankrupts, right? Others are the very thought of not having $500,000 in the bank account. That's a rock bottom. Or my wife and I, we didn't go on a date. Rock bottom. Like there, you get what you tolerate. So whatever you get in life is because you tolerate it. So Eustace, he was tolerating all this crap, and he goes through and he's this dragon. And then there's this moment where he has this change of heart and he has to take off the dragon scales. And he talks about how painful it is, literally like ripping off these scales until he's back. And of course, like there's a lot of Christianity, really cool symbolism there of like being reborn and like having this rebirthing. But no matter what our belief system is, we all have to go through that rebirthing experience of killing off our old self and allowing a new version of us to take place. And it is not a fun process. It's not something that most of the world is like, what am I going to do today? Well, I would love to go experience a lot of pain and suffering really quick to let go of all this stuff. Like usually we don't. Our bodies want to go away from pain, but if we can just start embracing pain and saying, hey, the avoidance of the pain is actually causing the pain. So if we can just go into the pain, suffer, go through it, it's not going to kill you, and your old self it will. Let go of that old self, then now you can actually take the 40 years of suffering and put it down into 13 days. You know, I love this example of this dude named Moses. He's in the Bible, and he like did all these cool things where he lets go and, you know, takes all these people out. This is Tyler's version of it. So yeah, as you know, I'm not super like, here's exactly how it is. I'm just about results and getting people changes. So this guy named Moses, he was a prophet, and he's like, hey, set my people free, right? So he does all these things like waters are parting, like all this epic stuff. And then when they're on the other side, their goal is to get to the promised land, right? Hey, the whole thing, we're wanting to get to this ideal land, which is the promised land. Now, the distance from where they left that area of bondage to the promised land was only a 13-day walk. And some of them even took it to go like scout it out. They're like, hey, let's go scout it out. And then they're like, they're giants and they're going to kill us. And like, there's no way we could go there. So like in life, we all get these glimpses of these visions and things that we desire, our promised land. Maybe it's to make $1 million. Maybe it's to have $1 million. Maybe it's to like have a great family and travel all over the world. Maybe it's to feel inspired and to write books. But we have our promised land, our place that we want to go. And yet when you leave something, the problem that they did is instead of taking 13 days, they took 40 freaking years going in circles, wandering lost in the wilderness. I work with people who know that it's a 13-day walk, but they're on the 40-day path or 40-year path. And there's like, that's because they're still in bondage. They're still in the mindset and the heart in slavery. In fact, some of them even said it'd be better for us to just go back to slavery. We're out here in the wilderness. And I think how many of us do that as entrepreneurs, where we leave the situation physically, but emotionally and mentally and spiritually, we're still in that slavery. You're still a victim to money. You're still letting money dictate your choices. You're still letting other people influence how you feel. We're still letting other people dictate whether we're rich or not. That money in the bank account, the 49 cents. Well, I was still in bondage. I was still addicted to that. So yeah, it's about getting out of that 40-year cycle and take the freaking 13-year journey, 13 days. Is it hard? Yeah, you still have to overcome stuff. In fact, the 13-day requires a lot more growth, a lot more intensity, and a lot more transformation. That's why they didn't choose it. There were too many obstacles that they couldn't overcome. They didn't think was possible. They had to live by faith. So we have to choose to say, hey, whatever goal I'm going for, obviously I don't know how to get it. I'm not there yet, otherwise I'd have it. But we have to be willing to confront and change and let go of the dragon, kill off that old self, and allow ourselves to flow into that new version of us so that we can truly get to that promised land and enjoy it instead of sacrificing everything to get there and then hating it.
Amen to that. That's fantastic. I love that whole journey and story about all of the change of how your current circumstances can be such a long path of just dealing with honestly the same stuff day in and day out. And it's what we commonly refer to as like false beliefs, right? And that's what holds us back from taking that 13-day journey. It's like, I can't do that because X, Y, and Z. But all of a sudden, when you confront X, Y, and Z, you're like, well, actually, I can. And then you go make that journey and now you're free. And that's amazing.
Dude, yeah. One other piece of that. I remember this time where like the first 6 figures in a year felt so hard, you know? And I was like, man, that's like a 40-year journey. And then I confronted it, worked it out, got it. And then I thought, you know what feels like another 40-year thing? What if I did 6 figures in a weekend? Like, oh my gosh, that feels impossible. So then I did that where I did over $250,000 in a weekend. And I was like, whoa. So whatever feels like a big time, like commit to yourself, but only if you're ready to confront stuff, because don't do this if you're not ready. But my first year, I was like, I am going to live 40 years of experience in 1 year. And then all hell broke loose. Like I had so many emotional ups and downs, but because I had the tools and the processes, I was able to work through those strategically. Most people don't commit to that 13-day journey because they don't know how. So learn the tools, learn the techniques, learn the processes. And if it's with me, awesome. Like I'm kind of biased. I believe I have one of the fastest and best thing on the planet since like sliced bread, you know? And so it's just because it works and it gets results.
That's awesome. So to dive a little bit more into some of the business tactics and stuff that you've done to go to 7 figures, how is
Yeah.
it that you're getting discovered? How are people finding out about you and you're getting those clients?
So there's a couple ways. I used to do YouTube ads. And so it was like mainly YouTube. And then I would do the whole YouTube to a webinar to convo to my programs. And programs that would range from like $100 a month all the way up to 100 grand. So big span. My goal was just serve people where they're at. And it's all based on speed and how fast they want it and how much hand holding they want. So that was one method. Right now, currently, we're actually in the method of using JV partners. So I actually do this whole thing, which is like a reach out. So we'll go find all of our ideal people once or twice a month. And then I get the whole list of them. And then I'll make like a 1-minute video introducing myself, talking about what they do, talking about what I do, how we could merge. And then I share it's like a little mini enrollment piece. I'm like, dude, you're crushing over here. You're crushing over here. I actually help your people crush it even better in your stuff. And our last one, we were able to pay out like 60 grand to and just affiliate commissions. So share some wins. Like you like to help people. You like to make money. I like to help people. I like to make money. Let's combine forces and do it together, right? We're going to spend it all on Facebook and ads anyway. So might as well pay you. So that's kind of the reach out. Then we do I send all those like 20 out. And then from that, we have a follow-up system that we follow up. And then through the follow-up, then we just connect. And through those connections, then we book a strategic partnership where I'll do either a webinar to their audience, and then they'll serve my audience. And I'll pitch them to my 3-day virtual event that we do every month or every other month. And through that, then they go through 3 days of immersion. And then we pitch them our mastermind level, which is like a 24K program. And we pay out 10% on the back end and 50% on the front end. So it's like it's like a great moneymaker, super epic, serves them. We have no competition because all we do is help people win faster. Even if somebody's like, hey, I teach this thing that helps people change. Cool. Well, if they're not changing, it's because some part of them was allergic and addicted. Implement this with it, they'll do it faster. So I'm not about like I love Bob Proctor. He said that the only competition is with your own ignorance. So like there is no competition today. Literally not. It's just your own ignorance is the competition. So if you're like, oh, I have something that's like this. No, it's not. It's because every single person is unique. Every person has a different story. And however you change or whatever product or service you get, using it from a different person is going to have a different impact. So yeah, that's some of the strategies that we're doing right now.
I love that. That's how John, my mindset along with John is we don't see it competition. We just see it how we help you grow faster and better and do what you're doing well and just focus on that and do it better. So I love what you're doing. And I think just the benefit there, like you said, doing JV, I think is the smartest way to go because you're just helping more people with more audience of people who already want to change. So you're getting pre-qualified folks, which I
Yeah.
love. So what's some of the goals for this year? Like, what are you guys trying to
Yeah,
do?
dude.
I know you're working on a lot of things and I know that, but what are some of the goals you're working
Yeah.
on this year?
So this year, I mean, we had our son at the end of last year, so it was like the last day of December. So and then in February, random, we're like, let's move. So we moved. So we're like, so we moved, had a baby, and we're writing a third book. So that's in queue. And then one of my goals is just to have this year is create a family dynamic where everybody feels like we're getting into a flow of consistency with my kids. So that's one of the goals is to be really consistent with my kids and their learning and they're going, we homeschool as well. My wife's freaking awesome and she's just amazing. And one of the other goals is to utilize this home because this was like totally random to bless as many people, bring them here. We love doing music. I like to sing. My wife's a pianist. So bringing people together, having more joy. And then in business wise, I'm still working towards getting 1 million a month. So that's the goal. And I want that to become a system that is automated without me. So where we make 1 million, but also keep at least half or 3/4 of that to where, we can pay out everything we need to be, help other people make 6 figures. We certify people. So I also have a goal to get 100 people to 6 figures as a coach. And we are on the way to do that. We've got several amazing certified elite performance coaches. And then to get booked on bigger stages, get out to like tens of thousands of people, have our book become a New York Times bestseller and really write it in a way that is going to last forever. So those are some of the things that we're focused on this year and then have a lot of fun. We love going to Disneyland and we love Universal. We're super big Harry Potter geeks. So we've got lots of those planned. And next year they're coming out with a whole new park. So we're excited about that. So yeah, lots of fun, lots of balance, lots of transformation. We have all sorts of things we're working on. But right now we're in that phase of just like getting everything in order. My room's chaotic right now. We just moved and all this stuff like a couple weeks ago. So yeah, that's kind of our goals.
That's fantastic. I love that. Um, so when somebody comes into your atmosphere of your business world and you start building a relationship with everything with them, what is it that you're doing to kind of like nurture them and build that relationship on the front end?
Yeah, on the front end, honestly, it's like once someone reads my book, which is The Alignment Effect, they're sold. They're like, holy crap, I've never seen this before. This is different. This is the missing piece. So, in terms of front end, I'm just like, read the book, and then they're like, okay, how do I get, what do I do next? So then it's usually a book. Then that goes to an online 3-day virtual event. And then we do the 3-day virtual, and then they'll either get into my Unstoppablepreneur course, which is like a monthly subscription that they get to learn the techniques, get breakthroughs every week, or my mastermind if they want one-on-one hand holding, or my 7-figure influencer, which is helping them become a 7-figure influencer or beyond and balance it so they can have it all without losing it all.
That's awesome. I just think how your journey lines up to help them progress and do better. Then also, like you said, which I love, is helping others. So not only are they getting improvement, they're able to help others and obviously grow. I just think that's a scalable thing. That's just awesome. Plus, I
Yeah.
just consider just winning. You know what I mean? They're just getting
Oh
better.
yeah, dude.
They're improving.
Certifying people is fun because then they're just like they have to like help so many people to win. And it's like,
I love
cool, you
that.
gotta go change at least 20 people's lives or more, and then do it 40 variations of that. And so then they get tons of testimonials, and it's cool to see all these like wins from people. It's awesome.
I love that. That's John R's heart. Is like, how can we help and add value is one of our core beliefs, really our core belief. And I just think that's just aligns with what you're doing, Tyler. Like, how can you help and add value to people but do like you said, you want to help people make money. End of the day, you want to help people make money. So your core values really align with what we're doing. It's super exciting to hear what you're doing. And I
Thank
guess the
you.
big thing is, as we get a lot of great stuff today, but as we're kind of wrapping up, what's some ways that people can reach out to you to get your book, to connect with
Yeah.
you, or to get some help, to talk about
Yeah.
more about you?
So you could go to our main website, idoelite.com, idoelite.com, and on there are all the resources. So if you just go to IDO Elite, IDO Elite, and grab my book, like that's a no-brainer. Got to get the book, and then hop in the Unstoppablepreneur School. We have ways people can get into it just to try it out, and once they're in, they're like, dang. But I do suggest only do it if you're really ready for like life-changing stuff. And I don't say that lightly, because a lot of people will hear this and they'll be like, cool, I'm not really ready for that. And that's okay, because of the nature of this and it works so effectively. It's kind of like you have to get into a different way of thinking. It's like if someone buys a Tesla, you can't take the Tesla to the gas station anymore. Like it just doesn't function the same way. Completely different way of operating. It's a whole different system. So that's how this is. It's a whole different system. It is not like the old way of, different therapies, getting to root causes, finding the thing, going through this for hours and hours. It's not that. It has its own unique thing that has its own unique nuances that isn't for everyone. So I just challenge, like, if you're really ready to make lasting change and you're done with the 40-year cycles and you're ready to confront everything in that 13-day journey and you're willing to put in that energy, that effort, and not quit and not give up, then this is for you. And if not, cool. Maybe down the road, you'll be like, oh yeah, allergies and addictions. That's the only reason why I'm struggling. I could shift this and it could happen in minutes. That might be worth it to me to learn and apply this. So yeah, that's what I would suggest, but it's at idoelite.com, probably the best place to just start.
Fantastic. So I have one final question that we're going to end this podcast with. And we live in a very unique place in today's world where we have the ability to capture thought via video. And in the future, there's going to be a day where we're all no longer here, but this video will remain. And so what I like to do is I like to ask people, based on all of your experiences that you've had up to date in your life, what is the one thing that you would share as a piece of value to the rest of the world that can be documented for years?
Yeah, so the one thing I'd say is God exists and he actually cares. And when you tune in and ask, you'll be given your own destiny and your gifts, and lean in. Like, don't let the fear drive you, let faith. And if you do that, you will start to move mountains, no matter what they are.
That is beautiful.
I love
I
that.
love that.
I do too. Because I always say, and I love what you lines that's you a lot, Tyler. And correct me if I'm wrong. Is you can't hold on to fear and hold on to faith at the same time. You just can't. You're just duplicitous, and there's all this tension. It's when you let go of the fear, you can start experiencing the faith. So I love that's kind of what you're doing, not in a nutshell or in exactly,
Yeah.
but I love what you're saying is letting go, all that tension, all that stress, that cellular level, and you're able to experience that faith. But you can't do both. You just can't.
Yeah. And sometimes when you're on the faith thing, you're like amidst the fear, and it happens like in minutes. You're like, I have faith, and then fear. I have faith, and then fear, right? So we all go through those, like, so it's kind of together, but it's like, yeah, eventually you got to be like, cool, I am done with this fear-based living, and I am ready to step into this faith-based living, which is so much more fun, way more fulfilling. You make a lot more money, more impact. It's just overall way more fun. It's just awesome. Yeah.
Amen to that. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Tyler. We greatly appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks,
And
guys.
we'll catch you later.